A lot of people, when attempting to justify the changing of the Sabbath day from the 7th to the 1st, or the general doing away with the Sabbath day, like to refer to a text in Colossians chapter 2, or a couple of texts in Colossians chapter 2, verse 14, but especially verse 16, which reads, "Let no man therefore judge you in meat, or in drink, or in respect of an holy day, or of the new moon, or the Sabbath days." Remember, Sabbath days, not Sabbath day. And verse 17 reads, "Which are a shadow of the things to come, but the body is of Christ." Now, what are these shadows? Because verse 16 describes a number of things, and in verse 17 it describes these things as being a shadow. Now, in order to understand the meaning of the terminology used in that text, you need to have a look at Leviticus 23, Isaiah chapter 1 verses 11 through to 15, and Hebrews chapter 9. What are the shadows spoken of by Paul in his letters, or his letter to the Colossians? If you look into the mindset of a Hebrew, especially in Paul's time, you'll see that their focus was very much on the sanctuary given to them through Moses by the Most High. Now, Psalm 77 verse 13 declares that the way of the Most High is in the sanctuary. The way of Christ is in the sanctuary. The sanctuary had a lot of rituals and festivals that were all shadows of what Christ would do. So the shadows described in verse 16 and 17 of Colossians chapter 2 are parts of the sanctuary service. Verse 16 reads, "Let therefore no man judge you in meat," that's a meat offering, "or in drink," that's a drink offering. These two offerings pointed towards Christ's sacrifice. "Or in respect of an holy day." Holy days such as the Day of Atonement, there's the Passover, the Feast of the Trumpets, and so on and so forth. Or of the new moon. Again, these are sanctuary services that are connected to the yearly cycle of Jewish life in the Old Testament. Or the Sabbath days. Now, one example of the Sabbath days, or of one of the Sabbath days you would find is the 10th day of the 7th month, which is the Day of Atonement. If you read Leviticus 23, you'll see that that day, the 10th of the 7th month, whatever day it would fall on, whether it be the 1st, 2nd, 3rd or 4th, the Israelites were told to keep it as a Sabbath day. Now, these days pointed toward what Christ would do. So these shadows and types are fulfilled in the antitype, which is Christ. So they were done away with at the cross, because there was no need for that which Christ had done on the cross to be pointed to anymore. He fulfilled them. That's why the Sabbath days are done away with, because we no longer need the physical sanctuary structure to learn of Christ. He came and fulfilled the types and shadows that we find in the sanctuary service, and that's why we shouldn't judge anyone on these things, because they are null and void now. The Most High never did away with the Sabbath, and he never will. If you read, for example, the accounts given in Matthew 24, Mark 13 and Luke 21, you'll see that Christ, when referring to the destruction of Jerusalem that would happen in AD 70, he says, "Pray that your flight be not on the Sabbath day." So over 30 years after his death, burial and resurrection, he is giving his disciples instruction to pray that their flight isn't on the Sabbath day. So 30 years in advance of him declaring what he declared in Matthew 24, Mark 13 and Luke 21, he's asking them to pray that their flight not be on the Sabbath day. And there are many, many more examples. And in the series of videos I'm doing on Catholicism and the Sabbath, I'm going to look at some of the texts, and I'm not going to use my own words, nor am I going to use Adventist literature. I'm going to use Catholic literature, because they are far better than me at proving that the biblical Sabbath is the 7th day. Please pray for me as I pray for you, and consider all that I've said, and let us study the Scripture as Scripture declares it should be studied, line upon line, precept upon precept.